Welcome to Varn Blog Solo. We're in the midst of war and rumors of war. As a prophecy, wars and rumors of war is about as predictive as water in rumors of rain. Unless one is in a desert, which is by far not the world historical norm, there's always rain. I've been confronting the weird relationship that so much of American politics has had with the Democratic Party and with Joe Biden. The illusion being ripped from people about who these people are and what they generationally represent. And yet people have been flipping to support Donald Trump, the GOP, etc., as if they weren't going to get more of the same. I mean, the irony is even the great disruptor of U.S. politics, of which Donald Trump most assuredly was, there's remarkable continuities between parts of the Obama administration, the Trump administration, and the Biden administration. And many things that are innovations of Trump have been maintained under the Biden, as I've been saying now for 2 years. And now that all the COVID concessions to panic are over, and most of those goods have dried up, you're left with dawdling old men prancing into the future with no backbench to fulfill them. No realistic way for large working class movements to come about. You will see more and more strikes because labor's in a stronger bargaining power just because there's less workers. And yet you're also going to see, probably for a while, not a whole lot of catch up with that in the general population being unionized, because the realities of the economy, where these kinds of union strategies work the best, these ones from even before neoliberalization, have not yet been adapted to a world full of franchises and petty bourgeoisified markets. As Nicholas Villarreal says, one of the things we have to look at that neoliberalism did, in addition to financialization, was increase mid-tier petty bourgeois relations, people with above, 50 but under 1,000 employees, small businesses, but not the mom and top, virulent, quote, working class-esque petty bourgeois of before, and definitely not artisans. For all the talk about the PMC, which I'm not sure as a class, but as a phenomenon, it's very real, this still misses a lot of the point of what's happened in the U.S. economy. Generationally speaking, large swaths of older people have been made dependent off of the profits of the young. And in a way, as I'm writing a paper on Christopher Lash right now, as I'm talking to you, which will be 2 weeks in the past from when you probably get this, it is very apparent to me that the foreclosure of future is one of the weird ramifications, not just of neoliberalism, but also of Fordism. We haven't been able to imagine the future in a long time. The beginnings of Fordism is the last time you really saw it. The height of American optimistic science fiction is in the 50s. It should surprise no one that Joe Biden's polls are so bad. What should bother people is there seems so little backbench, so little talent to really replace him. You might have Newsom or Pritzker, or some return to a pre-90 status of governors coming up, particularly rich ones. But Newsom comes from California. Now, I would normally argue off these historic norms, but increasingly, I don't know. The cynicism in which people have treated, like, oh, Trump will never get convicted. Well, he might. If it's good or bad is not yet to be known. There's just a lot of selectivity in society. But Joe Biden, particularly with how he's even gone further than Obama did, leading up to silent Antifada and Obama's words about the Palestinians in 2012, has been a reversal back to Clinton era stances on Israel from Democrats. At a time when the world can see everything, and while sympathy was initially with the Israeli cause, after all, what happened on October 7th is a big deal. People can't ignore 10,000 dead on the day I'm saying this. By the time this releases, that might be up another 1,000. Maybe 2, maybe 3. Maybe a lot more. People don't ignore that. The idea that the Democrats have that this will just wash away. That Dearborn, Michigan will trust a Democrat again. They might not vote for Trump. They might just, and most probably, won't vote at all. This brief blip of hyper voting activity, which we've seen primarily from millennials, who've grown up with every election in their lives being the biggest election ever as a strategy since, I don't know, Reagan. That's all we've ever known. And it's had an effect. But how much of an effect and how continuous it is, it's hard to say since there's been so little change. There are no adults in the room. There are no adults in the room anywhere. It's not because there aren't wise people. It's because this is beyond the scope of any individual wise person to run. Collective leadership is your best way around it. You need multiple smart people leading you. And we are actually heading in the other direction because it superficially makes it seem like the sovereignty of a single person can cut through this Gordian knot, but it never does. As Joseph Tainter said about complex societies, the attempt to increase rule into a single executive tends to actually accelerate the decline and the complexity of society because it also removes the competence levels at the leadership of these complex institutions the moment the dictator is gone. Now, we're not looking at dictators here, but there's been consistently and bipartisanly, and not just in the United States even, an increasing reliance on executives to get through what seem to be impossible impasses. That this is not just in the US, but in a lot of the world, seems to indicate where we are. But conversely, despite all these reliance on Bonapartist figures, we have not seen a return to the mass politics of the early 20th century. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But I'm not holding my hands out for it. As Biden's popularity wanes, and people who have been saying to me until very recently, you're looking at the most progressive president since FDR or since Lyndon Baines Johnson, which in some ways may even be true, is such damningly faint praise as to mean nothing. Pop's gonna pop. Dart Brandon in here to save you. But neither are a lot of your schemes either. To get around this is going to take investment, not in just localism. That makes you vulnerable too. You have to coordinate not just nationally, but internationally in a real and sustained way to deal with the problems that you're going to see. Most of you can't get your head out of methodological nationalism because that's where your stats are. And that's how you imagine law works. And you think everything is a creature of law and that nothing subordinates law. I hate to tell you, my friends, there are realities beyond human law. You see, there are no adults in the room, including us and including you. As I said before, the millennial left is mostly dead. I don't agree. I don't disagree with Chris Catrone on that. I don't agree with Chris Catrone on most of the stuff that he says that means, but I do agree with him that it's exhausted itself. It's waned and it's waning. It'll seem more radical as it goes down, but that's true for evangelical Christians too. Doesn't change their trajectory, does it? Yes, religion will come back, but those particular religious people, that particular cultural fight, it's on its way out. And so is this one. In a similar cycle that we've seen over and over again for the last 100 years. If anything, this is the theme of the show. Give up your illusions, give up your false hope, quit pretending there's someone to save you. You save you, and you're not doing a very good job of it. So if you're thinking that if we can just get Joe Biden through 2024 and we're out of this morass, what comes after Trump and Biden? No, it's not DeSantis, seemingly. Good old Sausage Fingers has a personality of a sitcom torturer, which is almost what he is. It's not Kamala Harris, one of the 85 kinds of candidates after Obama that were built out of appeals to constituencies and nothing burger politics with nothing really to show their name politically, other than a vague whiff of competence in management and hope to appeal to girl bosses are the black female voter base. See also Lori Lightfoot. Oh, but the old progressive rich oligarchs from California or Chicago can come up and save you, right? You got your white men back again, as if that was the point. You don't know what comes after this. Quit pretending that you do. I'm good on historical trends on these kinds of matters, and I have no idea. Giving up the idea that you know what's going to happen because every prior keeps on shifting a little bit. The hour of Minerva flies at dawn. Hmm. Whether Joe Biden wins or loses, the progressives in this country are becoming increasingly unpopular. The conservatives are also totally at odds with themselves. We're a country geared up for a crisis of which we're actually, other than our own internal politics, geographically in a good area to handle. And yet we can't. This is only for Americans, but it's something to think about. The whole world is facing similar crisis. Americans, we aren't that special. The illusion of hegemony makes you think that you are isolated and special, and that is always an illusion, and that is not unique to the character of the US. It is unique to the character of hegemons, and the era of that kind of hegemony is over, probably. But that doesn't mean that the US power is just going to go away either. It doesn't mean there's going to be one or two multipolar hegemons that are just going to get along to replace it. None of these things are automatically true. None of that is given. But there are things that are going to happen that you can't stop. Causality is like a boulder. Once you start pushing it, it starts moving by its own inertia. You can redirect it, but you're not going to undo it unless you get crushed beneath it. In other words, what agency you have is not of your own making. It is in taking what you can't make and doing what you can. Thus, we need more social forces before we try to build up political ones, but not in a cultural revolution way, which pretends that you could change culture as a means of changing politics. We have to deal with relationality, not just politics, but we have to not lie to ourselves and pretend they're the same thing. The toddlers are in their 80s, folks. Watch them have a breakdown. But what does that mean about you? Like and subscribe. You can find us on the Patreon. Hit the bell. Follow the notifications. Share on whatever accursed social media platform you share on. Thank you so much for listening to my rant.